Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to PSGL. George Morgan here, your commentator, alongside me, TK, who is going to be rounding off the season with me.
Down the inside,
Absolutely impossible scene.
This is for the win between these two.
I'm on the edge of my seat.
He needs to get it done now.
Blakey will dive to the inside.
We'll go bust. We got our elbows out.
Ronard takes the lead.
Because here comes Alfie Butcher.
Can't really complain with that one.
It's not going to be easy. The pressure is on, of course.
Yarda Watmere is your champion.
Good evening, everyone, and a very warm welcome here at PSGL PCF3, where it's time for round 6 of the season with a little change as we're not heading to Canada, but we are here in warm Spain. I will be a host for tonight. My name is Mitsky, and as per usual, I am joined by Max.
Hello everybody, pleasure to be back once again. Should be a very interesting race this evening. Only recently did we change from Canada to Spain. There was a little bug on the Canada circuit, so it was a very late call. I think it happened Monday evening, the fact we got it changed to Spain. So the drivers haven't had as much time to practice, Myth. That could potentially lead to some interesting qualifying and race sessions. So we could see potentially another surprise like we saw from Wojtek Steg last week. And also, how are you on this Thursday evening and on your return from a week off?
Yeah, pretty good, Paul. Last week I indeed wasn't there. The week before was a solo cast around Monaco, so it's nice to be back in a box together with Max. Heard it was quite a crazy one. I believe Dimas got pole last week out. He got a second place that now makes him the... Well, I think we should say provisional championship leader. More on that later. He finished second, but it was a race win for Wojtek Steg, who I believe started in P6, wasn't it?
Yes, it was a P6 start for Wojtek Steg. If I quickly, yes, it was 6th place for Wojtek, and it was a good drive from Steg, to be fair. He capitalised on some early carnage, was able to make his way up through the field quite nicely, and then at the very end, when Galindo was staying out on those really worn, hard compound tyres, trying to complete that one stop, he was able to get by, and then he was, as Dimas got stuck behind the Williams and was just able to streak further and further clear. But yeah, Dimas now our de facto championship leader in a sense, and of course, he's the reigning F4 champion. Could he go back-to-back this season here, Myth?
It would be really impressive from him. Of course, we followed him the previous season when we were with him in F4, and now we are with him in F3. We are saying de facto championship leader because, of course, still championship leader is Gabor Santos. He did get promoted last week out, had such a healthy lead that even with last race, he did not get overtaken just yet. The gap's now down to, I believe, 8 points, but with half a season to go, he's definitely going to get overtaken, maybe as soon as tonight. Speaking of tonight, we are quickly going to go over to our race view because the drivers are just leaving pit lane for our qualifying session, so we can get that underway. As I said, we are here in Barcelona, the Circuit de Catalunya, and we are now jumping into qualifying session. Likely going to see 3 runs out there, and we have 2 stand-in drivers for tonight with a grid of 18. We have Boba joining us in the Mercedes, and we have Giovanni Kennis joining us in the Ferrari, replacing Jona Martins, who is still hosting for us tonight, so that is great to see.
Yeah, it certainly is great to see Jonah still helping out, even though he's not able to race tonight. He has some other bits to do, but he was like, nobody else is offering to host the lobby, so I'll still help out. But over to things such as qualifying. It's Casper Flack to get us underway here in sunny Spain, as he'll be setting the first lap time. I'm going to be looking around probably a low 11, high 10 for potential pole position this evening. We'll see what Casper Flack can do. He now makes his way down into turn 1. Lucky the timing there with the Ferrari. Just kept out of his way nicely down that main straight as he now makes his way through the right-hander of turn 3. It's a corner in the race where you can easily loop the rear end round as the tyres overheat. as you then make your way into turn 4, braking that 50 metres down to 4th gear. Sling your car out to the left before making your way straight back over to the right to turn into turn 5. Easy to lock up the rears or even the front sides, which go that little bit wide, but for Casper, it's quite nicely done through there. 6, that little kink on the straight. Here comes 7 and 8. Very nicely done through there. Very tricky, complex corners, especially with the sausage curb on the outside as he heads through 9. Potentially a bit too much rotation with the curb, and he spins round. Well held from Casper Flack to keep it facing in the right direction afterwards. But what was shaping up to be quite a good run has unfortunately just gone down the drain.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate end to that run. We're quickly checking because I believe one of his teammates just managed to... Well, his other teammate, Francesco Lago, is indeed on for a run. He is about to come around the final corner. That's turn 14, New Holland. As he comes across the line, indeed, as Max was saying, we're going to go into the low 11s, potentially the 10s. But if our first run's already an 11.1, we're definitely going to break grounds even further. Keep in mind, Francesco Lago, also one of the championship competitors. Last week out, he did not participate, but he's still 3rd in the standings, only to get leapfrogged by Alexander Dimas by a couple points. And we're just watching the Ferrari of Giovanni Kennis, who's standing in for Jona Martins, we mentioned before, as he comes around 13, now heading into 14. Circuit being a lot faster since that rework 2 years ago is definitely helping with the pace here indeed, and he's only a 1,000th of a second slower than Zalan Bieder as Jensen Rausen now moves up into 2nd place. I want to see where Carlos Galindo is currently. He still finds himself in Sector 1, just starting his lap with a 21.3. Also one of the championship competitors. Dimas currently still on an outlap, Max, so let's keep an eye on Galindo.
Yeah, Galindo will be heading around onto Heathsapper's base and moves himself up into 3rd place, just slotting in front there of Zalan Bieder. So for Carlos Galindo, as he makes his way now through turn 9, 21.3 in the 1st sector. What we're looking about in the middle sector here for Galindo, it is going to be a 50.1 as Gabadi now goes to the top of the times. It's the first driver into those 1 minute 10s, has really had an upshot in form since his race win in Monaco. Got some decent points last time out as well, with a 6th place finish. As we saw Tomasetto Alaya now up into 3rd place. Here comes Carlos Galindo to line. What's he going to be able to do? Only 9th fastest for the Williams driver so far. I think it's the Bella next to the line. It is Valentino, who had a good qualifying in Austria, was derailed on that one, and it's 5th place for Valentino. He's about 300 shy of Jensen Rosen. Then we have Stephen Vasso on a lap time. He's coming up into turn 9 now. Dimas and Casper Flack still on their outlaps. So it's now up to Stephen Vasso to see what he can do, as he now sets a 49.9 through that middle sector, tracking at the moment for a low 1 minute 11.
Yeah, this is 2/10 quicker than we just saw Galindo do, so should be the low 11s, but that could be very close to P3 or perhaps even more, as Boba now slots in with an 11.0 in 3rd place, with Vasso taking over that spot. So great work by him. We're definitely getting close to the 10s. It's only Gobadi who's managed to break grounds on that. Flack has just started his first flyer, and Dimas is already on with that, a 21.1 in the 1st sector. That is also quite a bit faster than we saw Galindo do earlier on, but I want to see how quick Dimas is through that 2nd sector. We're eyeing the low 50s or even 49s. Let's see how Dimas does as he enters braking zone. That's a 49.8, and that's about half a 10th quicker than we just saw Vasso do. So perhaps Dimas will be the 2nd driver to break into the 10.9s, and if he does, he might be able to snatch away that provisional pole.
He might just be able to, so let's see what our de facto championship leader can do. A little bit of a wobble in the entry into the final corner. DRS opens, you make your way to the line, and it's 6th fast. Potentially lost a little bit of time in that final sector. Did seem a little bit scrappy, and he tucks in just 3 thousandths behind championship rival Francesco Lago, who himself has now just started a lap. Casper Flack goes 14th fastest on 11.3, but let's see what Lago can do in this 1st sector split. Now heading up through turn 3, keep a tight line and then drifting it out to the racing line on the outside. He's up by half a 10th in that 1st sector, so good rates of improvement so far from Lago as he makes his way now into turn 5. Let's see if we can keep it up through the rest of the middle sector.
Yeah, and he's now heading into the quick left-right hander, turn 7 and 8 through Worth. As they are called, goes a little bit wide out of 7. Now diving into 9, that's Kamsa before approaching turn 10 of Lakaiksa. But we should see a 49 sector time here as well. And he does a 49.7. He's now a 10th up on his own lap time, but he is faster than we saw Dimas do before, which is already faster than Vaso did in turn. So Lago could be on for a new fastest lap time here. Are we going to go into the lower 9s or even a potential 10.8? We're going to see now as he comes around the final corner. Francesco Lago to the top of the timing sheets, but still in the 9s. It's a 1:10.921. It's over half a tenth quicker than anyone else out there. It was also quite out of sync with everyone else because all the cars are currently in pit lane, bar 1, and that is our race winner from last week in the Red Bull Wojtek Steg. As he is currently coming around the final few corners, now diving into 13. And he will be the next to settle up. Finds himself in P17. Last week was a P6 in qualifying, like we mentioned before. Let's see if he does better this time round.
Yeah, we'll be wanting to use that race victory as a good morale boost. Of course, the first points of the season being a race victory. Exactly what you need at this stage of the season to at least try and kickstart your championship campaign. So for Wojtek Steg, will need to put that morale, that momentum into potentially gain into good use. Looking at the first sector split, he's up by just under half a tenth of a second. So looking at a similar improvement rate as what we just saw from Francesco Lago as he now makes his way into the middle sector. Of course, slowest of real competitive time so far on that 11.3. Pajeshki's a further 3 tenths back. And as he now makes his way through 7 and then into 8, nicely done through there as well. As he now makes his way up into the line where we saw Flack have that huge spin at the beginning of qualifying. DRS open now for Steg as he makes his way into that middle sector split, and he's up by 3 tenths of a second. Knew there was going to be more time in that one. It just seemed a bit too slow for Steg and others around him on those point threes to be that far off the pace at this stage. Show for Steg as he makes his way through the penultimate corner and now into the final corner he goes. Is this going to be enough to snatch potential provisional pole away from Lago? No, just misses out by 0.04 of a second. But Wojtek Steg puts himself on the provisional front row as Kennis starts his lap.
That was a really, really nice run from Steg. We were following on board pretty much all the way throughout that lap. And what I noticed in particular, it was super, super clean. The lines he was driving was super, super smooth. We see Kenneth go a little bit wide in 7. More drivers have done that. Steg wasn't one of those. But sometimes, even if it looks just tight, maybe even slow, because let's be honest, the lap from Steg, from the onboard, it didn't look like he was going fast, but because the car was moving so smoothly, everything was on rails, you do get those fast lap times, and that is the key to some of these tracks. It doesn't have to look fast, it just has to be fast based on the lines that you are driving. Now, Kenneth was already down by over a tenth in the first sector. I don't think he'll be coming too close, but it's a P7 for him still, which is not too shabby, so a good run from him. His teammate has just started a lap. He was the first one to break rounds into the 10s, but I think he is already slowing down a bit. He is indeed, so he is not going to go for a push lap just yet. I want to see what Tomasco Kenny is doing because he was currently in P4. Not sure if he's going for a fast run, but I think he is. And in that first sector, he is down by 100th of a second, but also with a 21.2 max. There's still room for Kokani to improve in sector 1 and thus improve his standing as well.
There certainly is. Jensen Rosen now goes up into 5th place. Nicely done there from Jensen. As Tomasetto Alaya goes to the top of the times. He's the first to break into those 10.8. So spectacular lap time from him. Kokeni, as he now makes his way through the middle sector split, he's up by a 10th in that middle part of the lap. Might have to just contend with that traffic of Ave Gabadi ever so slightly as Labella moves himself up into 9th place. Vassos just started his lap to charge around the circuit as we make our way now through the final corner of Tamas Kokeni. Can he break into that top 4 or will he just fall short? Across the line he goes. It's provisional pole from the Hungarian at 1:10.813. Found plenty of time in the final part of the lap, and that is exactly what he needed to go to the top. But what about de facto championship leader Alexander Dimas, who currently lies 13th fastest. He's up by 300ths in that first sector. What are we looking at here from the Dutchman in the middle sector? Dimas to that middle sector split. He's lost a little bit of time. So is Dimas here, Myth, peaked too early in this qualifying session?
Yeah, it doesn't look like he can get too close in that second sector, but we also mentioned for Kokeni, there's more time for him in it in that first sector, but the key to his lap was that final sector. He gained almost a 10th on almost the entire field there, and that is a big one, as we see Dimas also improving quite a bit in that final sector and still coming within a 10th and a half, even though he was already down that by the time he reached the end of the second sector. So a great final sector from Dimas, but needs to improve in 1 and 2 if he wants to get closer to the front 2 rows. Then I want to see, he mentioned Vaso was on for a run. Looks like he has aborted that one. Boba is on a fast run though in the Mercedes, stepping in tonight. He is just approaching the final 2 corners, looking to be quite fast indeed. He is in a P10 for now. Can he at least get into the 10s? It looks like he can, and that is quite good as he goes to the 3rd place for now. And only 11 thousandths slower than Ave Gobadi so far. So good lap by him. Gets very close to that front row. Flack has picked up track limits, so he won't be improving anymore. And all the other drivers, Max, are now in pit lane. So we're going to take a short breather here before we're going to get ready for the final runs, because I believe we have about 7-8 minutes left. Currently can't see it with the yellow in Sector 2.
Yeah, we don't have too long left in this qualifying session, so the drivers now just going to be coming into pit lane to just put on a new set of tyres and go again for their final runs. I think Vaso's actually pushing on after he backed out of that previous lap, and he's actually up by 0.08 of a second in the middle sector, but a little slide at the rear end heading into turn 10. Mileage just cost him dearly, and any shot of breaking into those 1 minute 10s. So now as he makes his way through the penultimate corner, Stephen Vaso, can he break into the 10s? No, he elects to abort, come back into pit lane, and he'll go for a final run once again. Just look how close this field is. I mean, 1,000th of a second separates Dimas and, it was Steg and Dimas at one point. And then look at Rosen and Galindo. The 2 teammates have set identical lap times to one another. So it just shows it is incredibly close. And all the way from Rosen actually down to Zalan Bieda, not even a 10th separating those few cars. So if you find a 10th or half a 10th on your lap time here, Myth, especially if you're in someone like Francesco Largo's position, you could see yourself onto provisional pole position.
Yes, indeed. We just saw Vaso come in. The time was indeed a lot less than we thought it was initially, so he had to come into pit lane just to make sure that he has enough time for a final run on the board. As I see one of the McLarens leaving, but we only have one McLaren tonight, so that is Vaso. He will be the 3rd in line, because our first man leaving pit lane, that must be a Williams, and this is the Williams of Jensen Rowson, who, as Max mentioned, is on identical lap times to teammate Galindo. Galindo, of course, ahead of Rowson in the standings. But yeah, it will be anyone's guess now who can break the fastest lap time. I think we're going to go into the 1:10.7s for our pole position here tonight. And I think especially Kokeni can go a little bit quicker than that. We will see more drivers into the 10s. I think about 10 or 11 drivers will do so. We're now at 7. But definitely those times are going to increase, and it's going to be a real fight tooth to nail all the way to the end of the checkered flag, which will fall in about 2 minutes. And in the meantime, in the chat, let us know who you think is going to get pole position. I don't know about you, Max, but my money's on Kokeni.
Yeah, I think Kokeni is a really good shout for pole position. I'm going to go for here. I'm going to go for a Ave Gobadi pole position. Of course, he's had a really good run of form ever since that win in Monaco, and he really has just been able to excel over the past couple of rounds. He's doing it once again. He just needed that confidence boost after that race to get himself into motion. That certainly is what he's done. Jensen Rosen will kick us underway as Valentino Labella's got a 5-place grid penalty, so we are going to have a lobby restart here for that one, because that's just due to the game being the game and picking up that 5. Let's have a look at what Jensen's doing through that first sector split. Is he up or is he down? He's up by half a tenth of a second. So the Jensen Rosen here, this looking particularly good in that first part of the lap. Now making his way into turn 5. Again, maybe a little bit slow on the apex and minimum speed, but still carried enough to steam through that corner. Through 7 and 8, a little bit wide. Had to just ride the sausage curb ever so slightly. And we'll see now as he heads through turn 9 and into that middle sector split. Has he been able to keep on this improvement, or has he lost time? He's lost a little bit of time compared to what he found in the first sector, but his final sector is really where we're seeing drivers be able to find a couple of hundredths or even a tenth of a second on their previous best. A little wobble on exit there for Rosen, had to correct it ever so slightly, not using the full extremities of the circuit through the penultimate corner and through the final one as well. He's actually left the session, so I think he's just had a disconnection there, Myth.
Yeah, it's a bit unfortunate as we've quickly jumped over to Kilkenny, who is up by about half a tenth in the first sector. That was the sector where he could gain some time, and now in the second sector, he is up by about similar lap time. Jensen Rowson is not happy in Discord chat. His game crashed, he mentioned. That cost him his lap time, which means he is now in P10, otherwise might have been up as high as 8th, as Kyra has also set his lap time. Elias come now in 4th stack, places himself in 6th for now, but here comes Kilkenny. Can he improve that provisional pole lap time? He can, and it's a 1:10.7. Now move on to Aid Gobadi. He has aborted, so no fastest lap time for him. Boba is in the gravel trap after turn 9, so he won't be improving on that either. What about championship leader Alexander Dimas? He was up in that second sector by about half a tenth. Can get close, but can he get to the top of the table? For Alexander Dimas, it's an improvement of 1,000 of a second, so it's not enough. Then Francesco Lago, he's made a mistake as well. He's not improving either. Vassos made a mistake too. Galindo's not improving. Salon Peter is not improving. And finally, Casper Flag has also invalidated. Max, this is it. It is pole position for Tomas Kilkenny.
That's a brilliant pole position there from Tamas Kilkenny. Exactly what he needed in this one. Of course, he's in that championship battle. He's only 16 points behind championship leader Alexander Dimas. So if he now wins this race, he will jump the Dutchman, but brilliant stuff from Hungarian. Once he took that mid-stage provisional pole, he just did not look back. The only driver into those 0.7s, and just under a tenth clear of Giovanni Kennis, who had a really strong final run to that one. But it seemed that plenty of drivers, Smith, were crumbling under that pressure there. Not many found improvements, and it was really only Kilkenny and Kennis who found considerable improvements on their lap time to give them the positions. I think Jensen Rosen potentially could have seen himself up into that top 7 if he was able to carry on for that rest of the lap. But we are going to have a lobby restart. Well, we should have one for the Bella's grid penalty. But yeah, for Tamas Kilkenny, a much needed extra point. And come the end of the season, that could be crucial in terms of the championship.
Yeah, we've seen before that Kilkenny is very fast in those qualifying runs, almost a tenth up, as you mentioned, ahead of Kennis. But what I want to mention here is we have 2 stand-in drivers for tonight. One of them is in P2, that's Giovanni Kennis. The other is in P4, in the name of Boba, for the Mercedes team. So great work by them. But just to round off the top 10, that's Kilkenny ahead of Kennis, then it's Gobadi, Boba, Tomasetto Alaya, Francesco Lago, Wojtek Steg, Alexander Dimas, your championship leader in 8th, and now my screen has shifted once more. So that will be all that I can mention, at least for now. As we mentioned, we are going to have a restart, so I have a little bit of time to talk about the track that we're going to tonight. Probably not going to see any rain, so just to mention that straight off the bat, I don't think weather is going to be too much of a factor. Max will take you through the preferred strategies in a moment, but to let you know some technical information about the track. Track's 2.8 miles or 4.6 kilometers long. I already mentioned that there was a rework in 23 where the final chicane was removed. Perhaps less interesting to watch, but for the drivers a lot easier to push on and also make it easier to overtake on that long straight with that DRS. There are 2 DRS zones, one on the start-finish straight, one after turn 9, where we saw a couple of drivers hit the gravel traps earlier on. Distance from grid to T1, 579 meters. That's quite long, so it's very easy to go for some overtakes in turn 1. And your last bit of information that you need is your pit lane time loss here. Max, 21.8 seconds.
Yes, a very short pit lane, to be fair, in terms of Formula 1, of only 21 seconds being lost. But with that, we are probably only going to be seeing every driver in for the one occasion. And that is going to be either a medium hard or a hard medium strategy. I think the medium hard is just slightly faster than that hard medium, but still both can be done, and we'll see what strategy everybody does elect for. Very much, I think, Myth, going to be about the DRS trains here this evening. Going to be all about those final few laps of this race. It's difficult to overtake with the lack of slipstream on this game, and I think, especially around Spain, that is exaggerated because you just cannot get close enough. Even if you do have DRS on the car in front and you're not burning that battery, you still, if you're 7/10 back from the car in front, you're not going to get close enough for an overtake. You have to burn that battery, and I think that's where the strategy is going to come into play. And if you can lead out of turn 1 on the opening lap, I think you have a really good chance of being able to hold on to that all the way to the very end.
Yeah, and the main thing is going to be here is that you follow in line with everyone else in the pit stop strategy and just position yourself nicely for the final few laps. Realistically, the driver that ends final lap, turn 1 ahead of anyone else, is going to win that race because it's very hard to overtake anyone during the latter part of the track. Unless you're really close, of course, you go out the outside of turn 3, maybe into 4. Second DRS straight is really too short to overtake, only to cut down the gap and position yourself for that long DRS straight. So you will have to be ahead in turn 1 of that final lap if you want to win the race here tonight. We did already see that quite a few drivers are very close to one another, so that is going to be key. And yeah, as always, with the way the tires behave in this game, make sure you don't burn through that rubber too early. Have enough for the final couple of laps, and then you're able to really make way and go for that race win.
Yeah, you really are. It's all about keeping those tyres in good temperature, especially that rear left. It starts to overheat a lot. Very left-hand dependent circuit on the tyres. That is plenty of long right-handers. And again, as well, engine temps are going to be very crucial around here. Of course, with it being a hot circuit, of course, it's blazing sun over in Spain, and you're following each other around pretty much the whole circuit. You're in those train tracks, and it's very much a power dependent circuit. You're going from quite slow speeds and then putting the throttle straight back down and climbing through those gears. The engine does get quite hot as it follows through that dirty air, so that is another factor these drivers have to consider, as potentially we'll see down the main straight or even up into turn 10, the driver's just ducking out of that slipstream, cooling that engine down ever so slightly, and then tucking back into the train to give them as much power as possible. With Spain being a power track as well, Myth, that is oh so crucial to not let your engine overheat, or you could lose a couple of attempts a lap, and that could be the difference between at least gaining a couple places in, say, the pit stop window, or ending up falling behind and outside the points.
Yeah, it's all about managing that car to make sure that's in tip-top shape heading into the final couple of laps. We're just quickly looking at the Discord chat where the drivers are communicating with one another. It looks like Kokeni is indeed very happy to drive here in Spain, calling himself a Spain merchant even. So I guess on raw pace, perhaps he will be the best driver out there tonight. He also set that pole lap here today, almost a 10th quicker than a man in second, Giovanni Kennis. But the race is a whole different story. As we mentioned, there's so many things that you need to count in, to factor in. And of course, you have the pit stops as well. They have to go right. You have to time that well. And if there is a safety car of any sorts, that you also act upon that nicely. So Kokeni has a little bit of the upper hand now that he's starting from the front row, but definitely don't count out the others because there are so many drivers that would want to get a race win here. Kennis to show that he's not supposed to be a reserve driver. Same can be said about Boba. Tomasetto Olaya wants to do well here to mix himself up in that championship fight. Steg wants to continue on his run from last week where he won. Dimas, of course, wants to take over that championship lead now that Jontas has been promoted. And also for Galindo and Lago, they will want to make sure that they get closer to our de facto leader in the championship, Dimas, so that they can make a real fight out there after the Christmas break. Until the Christmas break, we were talking about this before, Max, we have 2 more races after this one. So today we have Spain, then next week we're heading over to, help me out here,
We're heading over to Silverstone. Next
Silverstone,
week.
yes.
Yep, Silverstone, and then just before the Christmas break for us here anyway on PC, we will be having our Mexico race here on the PC side. That will be the final race before the new year. And then when we come back, it will be heading to Saudi Arabia. So the PC guys, if you're one of the PlayStation drivers, the PC guys will have the Mexico race before the new year, and then after that it'll be the PlayStation who bring us back into the new year straight after with their Mexico race. So it's somewhat split up just due to the fact I think if PlayStation did their Mexico race, if I'm right here, it would be on Christmas week. So it's just to stop any issues with scheduling, I think. So yeah, we'll be back at Saudi Arabia after the Christmas break.
Yes, exactly. It would be indeed in the Christmas week. Christmas being a little bit later in the week, you could say, with some Christmas days falling on Friday and so on. And yeah, with the race on Monday, you're quite close to that. And if you are visiting family, it will be, you would have to miss the race. And that would, of course, be very sad, as in this case, with now the PlayStation race being moved to the Monday after the new year. That will be on the 5th of January, if I say it correct. Yes, that would be the 5th of January. And for us, that will be on the 8th of January, where we resume in Saudi Arabia. And of course, rounding off that full season, round 11, just before the end of January. That is when we were able to crown a champion. At this point, we have many drivers in there. It looked like for us, at least after the first few races, we had a clear contender in the name of Gabriel Santos, but he's been promoted to F2, so that means that all the drivers that were squabbling around behind him now are fighting with each other for that championship, Max.
Yeah, they certainly are indeed. It would have been interesting to see if Santos, if he stayed, if he would be able to carry on the form he started that early season with. But yeah, I think with that though, we have just now opened up an incredibly interesting championship battle. Because even if you are someone, say, like Casper Flack, you get a win tonight, that is an extra 16 points onto your tally. You're up to 24 points. And say if Galindo doesn't score, then you've jumped him and he's 5th place in the standings. And Flack is all the way down in 16th. So it could certainly ebb and flow quite a lot. And this is going to be a very, very interesting season. Because from what I've seen so far, I don't know if you agree here, Myth, is the fact that a driver has a good race, then they have an alrightish race, and then there's just one track every so often that they just don't perform well out there. They have a little bit of bad luck or something happens to them and they just can't seem to perform. And that's where the others then are able to capitalise and bring that gap straight back down. And I think that's what we potentially could be seeing here tonight with Dimas. Yes, he's only 5 points clear of Francesco Largo, but a P8 in qualifying, if he can't make his way through the field, Largo will then, I think, actually leapfrog him in the standings again, and then we could be back to square one all along.
Yeah, and I think this is also the main difference between F4 and F3. All the drivers, of course, have their favorite tracks and their less favorite tracks. We heard from Dimas that here around Spain is not one of his favorite tracks, and if it's not your favorite track, if you're not that good on it, that is a difference between being up there on the podium positions or being down at the lower end of the points, in this case 8th in qualifying. And if you have a couple of those tracks out there in the season, which you inevitably will have, with the season being 11 races total, there will always be some tracks you're not that good at. You will lose quite a few points there to your competitors just due to the fact that how close it is between all these drivers. And that means that fighting for the championship becomes much more closer than you potentially see in lower tiers, where at times with 2 or 3 races to go, you have a champion crown. But I think here, maximum 1 race before, or we have a championship deciding race all the way in race 11. So that makes it more interesting for us, especially now it is really, really close with the likes of Dimas ahead of Lago. Elia is in there as well, together with Carlos Galindo. And Ave Gobadi as well. Ave Gobadi, I believe, is 4th in the standings currently. But for Gobadi as well, he was not really anywhere close to the championship. He got one really good race result that managed to get some consistent run in there, and he's up there in the top 5. And that's how easy it can switch. And that is also a call out there for Wojtek Steg, who won the race last week out. Even though he didn't have any points up until that point, if he consistently keeps on scoring like he did last week, within a week or two, you will be up there with the top 5 fighting for a potential championship. That is how close it is here in F3 Max.
It certainly is, and I believe that at the moment, anybody is still in contention. And if you just get that race win where the championship leaders don't really perform well, you then see yourself really within that fight. So, yeah, it certainly is going to be, I think, until probably the end of Silverstone, maybe beginning of Mexico, everybody will still be in championship contention, because of just how close it is and how everybody, I feel like, takes points off each other's at certain races. So, I mean, look at that for Dimas. He's had a 3rd place, a 10th, a 6th, a 5th, and then a 2nd. It's not been really just an overall outstanding season from Dimas's standards, and for everybody else's standards. We've had drivers who are in the top 5 in those standings. As you said, Abe Gabadi, not score a point till Monaco. And that just shows how it really is just going to be everyone's to win. And you need to be able to perform in these final few rounds. And if this string of races, for the final 5 races, suits you to a T, it's your favourite tracks, you could see yourself as a prime contender from the championship, even if you're all the way down at the bottom of the field, like a Valentino the Bella in the standings at the moment. All it takes is one good race, and everything flips on its head.
Yeah, and just a quick call in between, because we've been waiting a little bit for the lobby to get underway. It seems like our spectating host has gone spectating and is nowhere to be found, meaning that we've gone for a new lobby. So Max, you can just quickly join off of me or Casper Flack to get into that lobby, and then we'll be setting things up. I believe Francesco Lago will be hosting for us now, so he will be setting us up for a 33-lap race around the Circuit de Catalunya. So in a couple of minutes, we will be getting this underway. So apologies for that short delay. We now have the information about the grid, so everyone can see where they are supposed to start. But a huge shout out, of course, to Francesco Lago for stepping in so quickly and bringing up that lobby for us, so we can get things underway momentarily.
Yeah, we shall hopefully be underway very, very soon for this race here at Spain, and it should be quite an interesting one indeed. Of course, with Kokeni starting up on pole position, he's got a really good opportunity to score some good points in those championship standings and really be a big threat to Alexander Dimas, because he is a total of, if I could do my maths correctly, around about 10 points behind Alexander Dimas in the standings, and an 8th place finish gives you 3, and then a race win it gives you 16. So if things finished as they started, Myth, Kokeni would be walking out of things with a potential championship lead, or tied on points, I think, actually, with Francesco Lago. So yeah, this is going to be a very interesting race. I'm expecting elbows to be well and truly out, and I wouldn't be surprised here if we see drivers potentially go for either an opposite strategy if they're a little bit further down the field, a hard medium, or drivers stay out really long to then just charge straight up through the field on that second stint.
Yeah, especially for those starting lower down the line, strategy will have to come into play. And indeed, as we mentioned before, as Max also just said, the championship is so close that even scoring well here with the current leaders in the championship scoring a little bit less could easily mean that you leapfrog him just because it is so close to one another. We're quickly going to move over to those standings so you have a better insight about that. But another thing, Max, I quickly want to discuss, of course, we are racing here in Spain. We have our Grand Prix of Spain, but of course next year, at least if things stay the way that we think they are, the Grand Prix of Spain is not going to be in Barcelona anymore. It is going to be in Madrid. Although we did hear that there are some issues with that. Of course, in the next game, we would likely be driving on Madrid. But I believe if that doesn't happen, then, well, I'm not sure whether they're going to divert to. Maybe that we'll see another race in, I believe Imola mentioned that they would want to go there, but perhaps we would see Barcelona on the calendar for a little bit longer. But potentially, Max, this could be one of the final races in PSGL on this circuit.
It certainly could be. It's one of those things where, of course, we are saying goodbye to a real icon of the F1 calendar. Oh no, actually, Myth.
Testing.
We do have Barcelona on the calendar for 2026.
Oh, it's the last year in 26.
Yeah, it's the last year of its contract in 2026. And then Madrid takes over fully. So I think that's why they're shaping up Imola as a replacement.
I
If the
see.
Madrid ring can't get fully constructed. But yeah, 2026 is the final time we head to Barcelona for now, anyway. But still, even then, this could potentially be one of the last 2 or 3 rounds we have at Barcelona anyway. So it really is saying goodbye to a real icon of especially more recent years in F1. Of course, it's been on the calendar since the 90s, I think, when it first joined the calendar. So it's been there for quite a while, Myth, and it's going to be a shame to see it go to be replaced by another street circuit.
Exactly that. And yeah, of course, hopefully drivers will still return there for some testing if that isn't split between Bahrain or fully moves to Bahrain. We're almost going to head into the lobby, but as I mentioned, I do want to quickly go over to the standings for you. So here we have. As you can see, Gabor Jontos is still in the championship lead. He has been promoted last time out, but he's still 9 points ahead of Dimas. Then it's 5 points below. We have Francesco Lago, followed by Tomasetto Alaya, who's 17 points down. But realistically, we should look at Dimas, so 8 points behind Dimas. 12 points behind Dimas is Galindo. Gobadi then in turn is 15 points behind, and Kokeni is 16 points behind. So he would need a race win with Dimas being scoreless in order to be equal on points with Dimas. But you can see how close it is. We have 6 drivers within 1 race distance worth of points. And with Dimas scoring a little bit last year tonight, Max, that could mean that we have more drivers all close to one another.
It certainly does. It could mean we walk out of things with a new championship leader, or even just, I say, 3 to 4 drivers separated by 5 points coming out of this one. So at the moment, it is going to be all down to how this race does go. Could we see someone come from the back of the field to end up winning this one, like a Dennis Langrock or a Lucas Baesner? Could they potentially see themselves up through the order? We don't know. This is what is so great about this tier, is that everybody is so evenly matched that all it takes is one mistake in qualifying or even in the race, and you see yourself out of contention for a race victory. So it's going to be all about strategy, I think, here tonight. That's going to be the big one. I don't think penalties are really going to be too much on the cards. I think track limits are relatively easy to avoid around this track. So yeah, it's all going to be about the strategy, all about maintaining your car, the car management, the tyre management, and then pushing on in those latest ends of the stint. Because of course, if we see drivers burn up their tyres too quickly here, Myth, they could plummet down the field and eventually drop out of that top 10.
Yeah, let's keep in mind another key point of the track here is turn 9. It already called out 2 drivers in qualifying session, seeing them dive into the sandbox there, the gravel traps. And perhaps in the race we will see more drivers make that mistake, especially towards the end of their stint. In the meantime, all 18 drivers have joined into the lobby. We're just waiting for one driver. He has now joined with us, so we are getting ready to load into the game. In the meantime, for everyone out there watching us, let us know who you think is going to take the race win here tonight. And for a good measure, list your top 3, what you think it is going to be here tonight. For us, let's see. I have to think about this one. I do think that Kokeni makes a really good chance here on winning this race. I don't think that Dimas is going to be up there, at least in the top 3, perhaps top 5. But following, I think Tomasetto Alaya might be up there, and I think Kennis as well. So I think I'm going to go with a Kokeni Alaya Kennis podium. What about you?
Oh, that's actually a very good podium there. I think Kennis, if he can make it at turn 1 in first, I think he'll win this race. Tamas Kokeni, I think he would He definitely has the pace to do so. I'm then going to go for, as I refresh my mind on the grid for this evening, I'm going to go for a Gabaddi second place. And then a Francesco Largo third. I think that's going to be the top three for this evening.
That sounds very good. Well, in the meantime, we are going to switch over to our race screen view as all of our drivers are currently getting ready. It looks all bright in the sky, so I don't think we have to worry about any rain here. Just a quick reminder, we're going to see a one-stopper here tonight, most likely. I think we're going to see a medium hard or hard medium, depending on the strategy that they want to play. But I think most drivers will opt for that medium hard strategy as to be the preferred one. And again, list your top threes as well. Let us know what you think so we can talk about it. But we are getting into the race with 3, 4, and 5 red lights. And we're on our way with a good start from Kokeni on the outside. Ken is immediately looking if he can dive into turn 1 here, because that is where he needs to make the move. He's quite quick. He's already wheelbacking. That's almost 3 wide heading into turn 1, but it is Kokeni who keeps that lead, and it's Avgo Body actually moving himself up into P2, and looks like his teammate has fallen down the order quite a bit. Kenneth finds himself in P7. Alexander Dimas already moving up into P6 as he goes around the outside of turn 3 to get ahead. And it's actually Kenneth who's dropping down the order quite significantly, finds himself in P7, almost fighting with Kyra's teammate, then is ahead to Masato Elias in 4th. Francesco Lago has managed to push himself into 5th, and it's a great start from the championship competitors, Max.
It certainly is. Oh, Dimas, I think, has actually just been tapped ever so slightly there by Daniel Coyer. He's now going to go for the move around the outside of Giovanni Kenneth through turn 9. What a move this would be if he's able to pull that one off. Kenneth's still able to draw alongside. It's actually further up. There's Tomasetto Elia to the inside of Buba, but still to the outside line now will be Giovanni Kenneth. And I think he's going to have to concede the position, especially to Daniel Coyer. He has. And now Galindo streaks around these outside. He's really been caught off guard here. Has Giovanni Kenneth get a poor opening couple of corners, and he's just falling backwards since on this opening lap. Kenny still leading the way. It was a perfect start from him heading down into that first corner, and now Galindo all over the back of Kenneth as we make our way down into turn 1 once more.
Yeah, we're currently on board with Carlos Galindo, one of 2 drivers that have opted for the soft, something we were not expecting to see here. We have both of our Williams drivers on the soft, so it's Carlos Galindo in P9 and Jensen Rausen in P16 on the soft, but it looks like at least for now Galindo can't get too close to the back of Giovanni Kenneth. Remember, he started in P2, now in P8. Almost all other drivers are on the mediums, as we see a little reset down the inside, and now Galindo wants to go toe-to-toe with Giovanni Kenneth. He's actually on the inside of turn 7, and he swoops past. It's a great overtake from the Williams driver. They still go side-by-side through turn 9. There's really not any space to go side-by-side there, and indeed he will be ahead, and that opens up the door for the McLaren behind of Steven Vassell. Wants to go around the outside of turn 10, but that seems to be a little bit overly ambitious, although he will be on the inside of 11, and he will be ahead of Giovanni Kenneth, who's now dropped down to P10 after starting on that front row. So it's not a great start from him at all. But we were mentioning the drivers on the hard. So this Wojtek Steg in P14, and the pairing, the Kick Sauber pairing of Langrock and Beisner, who currently find themselves in 17 and 18. So we have a little bit of desyncing here on the main straight. Looks like Avgo Body has taken over the race lead, Max. I was not expecting that. He's now half a second clear of Tomás Kokeni.
Yeah, he has taken that race lead. Keeps that DRS and used the battery wise to get up into that race lead. Wojtek Steg now just been passed by Jensen Rosen as he moves himself up into 14th place. Steg now coming under a bunch of pressure from Igor Brzezinski. It seems that these hard tyres aren't really the ones you want to be on at the start of this stint, but they will come into these harder runners' hands around about a few laps time, probably around about lap 6 or 7 is when they'll start to really be the faster tyre. Kokeni's really dropped off the back of Avgo Body, but this is good experience at the moment for the Alpine to at least get a little bit of dirty air running in, depending on how these final stints will go, and if he does have to sit behind the Ferrari on those final few tours to get that run down the main straight on the final lap. Buba, of course, has also had a very good start as well, up into 3rd place. And then Thomas Setuala and Francesco Largo round out that top 5. Alexander Dimas is now potentially going to be all over the back of Francesco to go for a move into that first corner. Is he going to get close enough for a move? No, it just doesn't seem so. But the 2 championship leaders are 5th and 6th on the road. This is actually doing Dimas a brilliant way of damage control at the moment, gaining those 2 places off the start.
Yeah, and just to take a quick look at all the positions gained and lost here at the start, it's 4 places gained by Galindo. He, of course, started on those soft tires. It's 3 gained for Casper Flack. Then we have 2 gained for Peter Labella, Kair Dimas, and, of course, now race leader Abe Gobadi started 3rd, now in 1st place. Another couple of positions gained by Boba and Alaya and Lago find themselves 3rd, 4th, and 5th, as Boba is now getting ahead of Tomas. Kokeni has left the session. I think Kokeni might have crashed, but that is disastrous. The man that started on pole and was tipped for the race win is now out of contention.
He really is out of contention. You can just see him dropping further and further back. The AI going to be so slow through these corners. And Zalan Bieda now makes his way through. I think Casper Flack will follow ever so shortly as he's into the back of Tamas Kokeni. We'll look to the inside line. We reported some desync in this one. And for Tamas Kokeni, it is absolute disaster. He's rejoined the lobby, but he's gone from 2nd to 16th as we now see Jensen Rosen go to the inside of Casper Flack. That was super aggressive from the Williams driver, but just wasn't able to see himself through. But the big winner out of all of that here, Myth, is Gabani. He's now a second and a half clear of Boba.
Yeah, that is great news for the Ferrari man. He has that gap now. If he can keep that gap going for the rest of the stint and into the second stint, he will streak clear of anyone else and have a great shot at getting that race when you already tipped him as one of the outsiders, Max, and it looks like he might be able to stand up on there. Yona Martins has just mentioned something in the chat, so I think he was ready to just let everything flow by as it should. But, of course, as a result of that grid penalty that the game applied, we had some issues that otherwise would not have been there. Nonetheless, the gap for Gabadi to Boba is still 1.5 seconds. That seems to be stabilizing out there. I want to move over to Valentino Labella, who's starting to get closer to the back of Gifano Kennis as Boba now sets the fastest lap time with a 1:14.8. Really needs to get back into that gap of Gobadi within a second, because otherwise he's going to be a sitting duck for pretty much all the drivers behind them. Let's see what the real gaps are out there now, because, well, everyone is still within DRS contention of one another. Kokeni has dropped back all the way down to P18. So that is terrible news for him. He is at least still within the leading queue, but making up this many places with pit stop strategy is going to be a big heartache for him. And sadly for the Alpine man, it's heartbreak very early on in this race.
It really is. It's going to need an absolute miracle if he wants any chance of even breaking back into the top 10 at this rate. But as Abe Gabadi now makes his way through turn 10, he is doing everything he needs to. Boba so far on this lap is about a 10th quicker than Gabadi, but Gabadi could be in a little bit of tyre management mode because he's got that gap to now save his tyres. So just sit here and just focus on maybe eking these tyres out, maybe a lap or two longer than what he was planning to. But Boba was about 2 tenths quicker on that previous tour. Found a 10th in the final sector as well. He's got Thomas to Alaya just pushing him along as well. So he's not going to be kept alone if he makes a mistake or if he just backs off that pace ever so slightly. He's got Aston Martin waiting in the wings. But for Francesco Largo and Dimas, that now puts them both up an extra place as well. So they'll be loving that. But yeah, for Tamas Kokeni, it's been sheer disaster on this opening lap. And Jensen Rosen as well, I want to bring light to him. He's not really made an impact on those soft compounded tyres. He's actually gone down 2 places from where he started. So he's going to be into pit lane ever so shortly. And he's just had the opposite fate to his teammate, just going down instead of up.
Yeah, he's going to go for a very long second and final stint on those hards. But the good thing about stopping earlier is that you can break ground on those fresh hards at the start. You're going to be ahead of all the other drivers when they make their pit stops. And even though you've got slightly older hard compound tires, the offset might not be big enough for everyone else to just easily overtake you, and that could definitely help you overcome a couple of places. He started in P11, and with this strategy, perhaps it will be enough to at least break into the points, which is something that he would be loving. As we now see, Tomasetto Elia dives through the inside of Boba and takes over P2. They need to do this carefully, doing so, overtaking each other without losing, with losing as little time as possible. And we see Elia is now already getting close to that 1 second mark. I think he's using a lot of his battery to do so. He's indeed using quite a bit to get close, but he's now gone within a second of Abe Gobadi. Can Gobadi still streak out of that? He has a lot of battery left, but it looks like he's not using it, at least for now. He's harvesting even, and that means that in the second DRS of this lap, Tomasetto Elia will have that DRS once more, and now the queue has been caught up by everyone else. Although the top 6 is in a DRS train of one another, we have a second train starting at 7th place, Carlos Galindo. He's on those softs. Looks like those softs are already dropping off, and that means that Vaso, Kennis, Labella, Beater, and Flack are stuck in that second train, Max.
Yeah, they are now stuck in that train with Galindo. He's really fallen off a cliff. On the last lap, he was only 9/10 behind Daniel Coyer. He's now 2.5 seconds back. And here comes Stephen Vasso. He makes his way through, but now has a big mission on his hands to try and catch up to the field in front. As Tomasetto Elia got really close to the back of Abe Gobadi into that first corner. But for Tomasetto, yes, he may have used a lot of battery to begin with, but now he can start to ease that battery back into play just by sitting behind a Ferrari, saving a little bit more than where he potentially could have done, trying to close that gap back down. And he's now going to be really in prime position to take this race victory. Of course, he won in Texas with a very dominant drive there. Could he get the second race victory of the season? That'll be only our second repeat winner of the season. The only other one being Jontos, who of course got promoted. So it's DRS open now for Tomasetto Elia heading into turn 10. Alexander Dimas getting close to Francesco Lagos. We might not see a move at the front. We might see it over this squabble between the two championship rivals.
Yeah, further down, at least for P11, Alan Beater and Casper Flack are awfully close to one another. The gap was down to merely 2/10. Looks like Flack is positioning himself for an overtake. Vasso's already getting closer to the back of Kyer, and Galindo has fallen out of the DRS range of Vasso, so it looks like Giovanni Kennis will be going for that overtake now on the main straight. He's only down by about 2/10, and he's going to soar past on this straight, and we'll have to play catch-up with a McLaren up ahead. But the big question is, can Labella follow? It looks like he can't follow just yet. And we see how much time they lose. You need to overtake as soon as possible. Try to go around the outside of 3. Wants to rather go to the inside and perhaps dive into turn 4. He opts to stay behind, at least for now, but the longer you stay behind, the harder it will be to catch up. Ralston has come into pit lane, so he's already swapped out his softs for a fresh set of hards, and I think one can only imagine that Galindo is going to come in at the end of this lap. Vasso's gap to Kyra is still 2 seconds, so it looks like we have a definitive split, at least before the first set of pit stops, between the top 6 and the rest of the pack. But they will do everything that they can in their power to at least make sure they end up in that front 6 train for the end of the race.
Yeah, that is going to be a big strategy call here from both Williams drivers. They started on those softs to try and make up positions. Galindo did just that, but Rosen was not able to do that really, and Galindo actually stays out for an extra lap in this one. So to add to Labella's frustrations, Bieda's into pit lane before Galindo, and he's on the medium compounded tyres. So he's now going for a mega undercut on everybody on the same strategy around him, and Labella can't get through this time around on Galindo, thanks to the DRS that the Williams driver does have down that main straight. Was able to keep with Giovanni Kennis. As are we going to see that move finally be made from Labella as Galindo drags a little bit wide through turn 3. Just not close enough. Heading into the right-hander of 4 to have any opportunity to send a lunge to the inside line. Or is this it now? Into turn 5. Be late on the brakes from Valentino Labella. And he does just slot himself in front. Brilliantly worked. Potentially 1 lap too late. And he's out of the DRS from Kennis.
Yeah, but a good overtake nonetheless. He used that battery already heading into turn 4. He knew that he was going to position himself up nicely for turn 5 to send it down the inside, and indeed managed to make that move work. He's already getting very close to that 1 second mark of Kenneth, so using a little bit of battery will be enough to get close to that. In the meantime, Galindo is starting to hold up Casper Flag behind him, but I think Galindo is going to come in at the end of this lap and switch over to the hards. Beater is actually ahead of Rowson, so his undercut did not work. We do have Galindo coming in, but also Francesco Lago, Max, is already in pit lane. One of our championship competitors with a very early pit stop, and I want to see in relation to Zylan Beater where they are going to come out on, because Beater's fighting with Rowson out there. Lago and Galindo are now in pit lane. I think Lago will come out quite comfortably ahead, but he's now at the end of the pit lane, and indeed he will be ahead, and by quite some distance, because that is where I see the Alpine of Peter now replaced by Rowson, but that gap is 4 seconds, so it looks like their undercut didn't work. Lago with a very early pit stop, but now the key question is, will the other medium runners follow, or do they think that they can catch up and overtake Lago later on in the race?
They might be able to catch up if Lago is able to get that undercut done, because those tyres at the end of the race will be in absolute agony. They'll be screaming come the end of this one. But still, for Francesco Lago, those hards could make it to the end. He's got to do 20 laps on them, but they will be able to make it all the way to that checkered flag. As we see Alaya into pit lane. Is Booba following him in? Yes, he is. Dimas stays out for one more. Vasso into pit lane as well. So this is a big moment in this race here as well, Myth, because of course Alaya was running second. Does Francesco Lago make his way up into that provisional top 2 and potentially a provisional race lead?
Are we now moved over to Francesco Lago? I'm going to go on board with the V-Carb driver. Is he going to leapfrog any of these drivers, or will he be out behind them? He sees some drivers come out of pit lane, so Boba and Elias stay ahead of him. The gap's actually 2 seconds, so it looks like he lost a little bit of time, and staying out seems to be at least a preferred strategy for now. But now we see that Lago is going to gain because his tires are warm. The drivers ahead do not have warm tires, so if he wants to go for a move, he needs to do so very fast, and we already saw Boba go a little bit wide in turn 4. Lago's now within 7, 8 tenths of the drivers up ahead, and Boba is within striking distance of Tomasetto Alaya. Kokeni is then 8.5 seconds ahead. Of course, he was race leader earlier on, but I think all the other drivers are now going to come into pit lane. Here goes Abe Gobadi. He dives into pit lane. Alexander Dimas does so as well, followed by Kair. Then comes Casper Fleck. That gap's already 7 seconds to the man in P4, and he stays out. So he will be our new race leader for now. But where do they come out in relation to Alaya, to Boba, to Francesco Lago? Because here goes Tomasetto Alaya into the final corner of New Holland. But will they stay ahead of the likes of Gobadi, of Dimas, of Kair? And they are now leaving pit lane. It looks like Ave Gobadi is now our new race leader. Francesco Lago's actually gone up into 3rd. He's passed Boss Boba. It looks like that earlier pit stop, Max, allowed Lago to get another place or 2.
It certainly has done. He's actually now put a car between himself and Alexander Dimas. But now he's potentially teetering on the edge of falling out of DRS Gobadi. Timed that pit stop to perfection. He's come out just in front of Tomasetto Alaya and didn't lose much time at all to the Aston Martin. Is actually Booba, something's happened to him. Is he round? He's in the wall. I think he might have just ran a little bit wide through 4. And unfortunately for him, he's got front wing damage. I didn't see exactly how that happened. I just saw him fall down the order. And for Booba, who was running such a good race, he was having his best race so far here in F3 this season. And he now has seen himself got pick up front wing damage, and that's going to be the end to his hopes. But crucially as well for Alexander Dimas, yes, he may be 1.5 seconds behind Lago, but he's back to where he was behind the V-Carb. He's back to square one, and now has to bring that gap down to Francesco in front.
And in the meantime, we see both of the Kicksabos overtake Wojtek Steg for P2 and 3 in the race. As he drops down 2 positions, he's out with 5, and it looks like Boba's retired from the race after that damage. So that is also sad to see for a stand-in driver who's done exceptionally well with P4 in qualifying, fighting for the points, perhaps even a podium out there, but it not being enough, at least for now. And now Kokeni is getting awfully close to the back of Wojtek Stek. Wants to go round the outside of turn 5. That seems to be a near impossible move, but side by side they go. Once again, he will be on the outside of 7 and 8, and he has to yield here. Can't get through just yet, but looks like Steg has a bit of a performance issue there. He's losing quite a bit of time to the drivers up ahead. We see Kokeni having to lift into turn 9 as well. So I think Kokeni, at least the same as Flack, they should be coming in at the end of this lap. And then we will be able to focus on the drivers behind. Gobadi is now a provisional race leader ahead of Alaya. And in third, Francesco Lago. But Casper Flack actually staying out still.
Yes, he is staying out. And so's Kokeni staying out a little bit longer as well, as he's all over the back of Wojtek Steg. They've lost about half a second of the previous sector to Ave Gabadi in front, and there goes Tamas Kokeni. He makes his way through, and a little bit of a weave of frustration maybe against the Red Bull driver. And Kokeni now moves himself up into provisional 4th, but of course it could have been so much more. He could be in Ave Gabadi's shoes at the moment, leading the Grand Prix on paper. But we now see Kenneth get past Zalan Bieda as well. Dimas is good enough to close that gap down to Francesco Largo. That now 6 tenths between the pair. So all that stacking up, of course, where Largo has to break that a little bit earlier behind Elia and Gabadi has worked in Dimas's favour. Mercedes probably used a bit of battery as well to close in to the V-carb as well. So the 2 championship leaders will be squabbling it out once more, but at the moment, I actually believe that Tomasetto Elia could potentially take either joint top of the standings or second place at the standings if things stay as they were.
Yeah, indeed, Elia is not too far behind Lago and Dimas either. I think Lago is just ahead of him, but with this result, he might just take over that second spot at least. Or Dimas, he's still too far behind him. Casper Flack's now gone into pit lane along with Tamas Kokeni, so they'll have to play catch up at the back of the grid. But at least for now, it looks like Ave Gobadi is leading that train, and Vaso and Kair have mixed themselves up in that first train. So let's see, we have from 4th all the way down to 9. So we have 6 drivers in that leading train. And most interestingly, something that we saw before in races, no, it's not 6 different constructors. We have 2 Aston Martins. So sadly, there goes my beautiful story. Because a couple of races ago, remember that, Max, we had 9 different constructors in our top 10.
Yes, I do remember that. That was a very, very interesting race indeed when we had all those different constructors in the top 10. And it unfortunately hasn't happened again here today, but we still have plenty of different drivers as now Wojtek Steg drops behind Tomasetto Elia as well. Tamas Kokeni's gone into a softs for a potential short second stint, but I was expecting it to be a 1-stop, especially from how long he stayed out for. But no, he's electing to go for a 2-stop strategy, as we see now Wojtek Steg coming under all sorts of pressure from Francesco Largo. Is he going to dive into pit lane? No, he is not. And this could put Largo under all sorts of pressure from Alexander Dimas. And you can see defending there is Steg down that main straight. And here comes Dimas. Is he going to look to the outside line? Yes, he is. With 3 wide down that main straight. And will it be Dimas who comes out on top against Largo? There's some slight contact. Dimas off the road, and Largo holds onto his position, but only just. Has Dimas now got the run out of turn 4 he needs, as Koya is able to make his way past Steg, and so is Vaso too. But that nearly was a prime opportunity for Dimas to get past his championship rival and put himself onto that provisional podium, but he just fell short, and that was some crucial moments in the championship battle and the race as a whole.
Yeah, and that also means now that our top 2 has managed to break away from this gang. So it's Gobadi and Elia at 1st and 2nd. Lago's 1.7 seconds behind, and he's now pretty much a sitting duck to the driver behind him, and also championship competitor Alexander Dimas. Kair is still close behind, Vaso is as well, before Steg breaks up with Kenneth Bieder, Ralston, Labella, and Galindo behind. But if he gets... Nah, that gap is still 2.5 seconds, so I don't think they're going to get too close too soon. But let's see if Alexander Dimas can now fly by in the straight. He's already getting very close to the back of that V-Carb, and he has gone through already. So our new man in P3 is Alexander Dimas. Of course, the Gig Saubers and first and second still have to come in. They'll do so likely in a couple of laps time. Steck has come in for his pit stop, and he's gone for the medium set. Yeah, Kilkenny's gone for the sauce. Not sure why he's doing that. He's quickly catching up with the drivers further down behind. But I'm not sure here, Max, how a two-stop could work. Do you know?
No, I don't know either. And this is praying for a late safety car in this one. I'm not too sure how he thinks this is all going to play out. But as we make our way through the right-hander on 9 with Daniel Coyer, as he's now trying to potentially put some pressure onto Francesco Largo. Dimas just not into that DRS just yet. And that could see Largo straight back through, but he's nowhere near as close as Dimas was on that previous tour to get the move done. As Dimas has found a few tenths of a second on this previous lap, so he really is closing up to the back of Tomasetto Elia. It seems that if you use a lot of battery here, Myth, to at least round a majority of the circuit where everybody else is saving, you can find so much time and get straight back within that DRS. But the crucial factor is, if you spend too many laps having to push into that and use your battery, you're going to be out of it and not have any chance of breaking back into that DRS range.
Yeah, now the interesting thing as well is because Gobadi and Elia haven't pushed a little bit more, and Dimas has used quite a bit of his battery. He's now back within a second of the drivers up ahead, which means that once again we have 6 drivers fighting for that race lead, after which comes Giovanni Kennis in P9. He's 3 seconds behind, leading that second train. Kilkenny has pretty much closed the gap down to Piasecki in P15, but looks like he's not closing in as much as he would have liked to now, as the gap is starting to even out a little bit, and then it will be another 3 seconds and a bit before he gets to the back of Galindo if he manages to clear those two. So it'll be a very tough race for him. We already hear that the two-stop here doesn't work, and at the moment at least looks that this is the case, unless he can surprise us later on. Not sure if he's hoping for a safety car, because if we see a safety car, all these drivers are still going to come in, and he's going to lose out to the 2 drivers up ahead, the Gig Saubers, that haven't made a pit stop just yet. All the other drivers will just do the same thing, and the only thing that he finds himself is still at the back of the grid, Max.
Yeah, it's just not really a strategy I see viable here for Tamas Kilkenny. It's now to the inside of Lucas Baisner with Tomasetto Elia. As we now make our way down into turn 5, and here comes Gabadi to the inside of Langrock. Dimas now fighting his way from Baisner as well. Is he going to get that one pulled off? It doesn't seem so, but he's going to stick to the inside into 7. But it was there, just a slot in front before the braking zone, as he's still now all over the back of Tomasetto Elia. Crucially here for Dimas, Baisner could hold up Francesco Largo ever so slightly as he backs off, heading into turn 10. It's late on the brakes, goes Largo, somehow doesn't make contact with the Gig Sauber to the side of him, and he moves himself up into 5th place. Next on the list will be Langrock, and luckily as well for Tomasetto Elia here, Myth, Langrock still within DRS of Gabadi as Baisner comes into pit lane, so he's still going to be able to hold on to the DRS once he gets by the Gig Sauber.
Yeah, he indeed is now ahead of Langrock once more. It looks like he won't be able to, Gabadi won't be able to break away in over a second from Elia behind. So that's sad news for him. Langrock is still just ahead of Alexander Dimas, but I think he's going to try and make a move into turn 4 or 5. And it looks to be that he wants to do the same thing he did in the previous lap. Get a better run out of turn 5. And this time around the outside he goes, and before the entrance of turn 5 he's already gone past. So great driving by Dimas, who's now slotted himself up nicely in P3, and he's hoping to relieve himself from any pressure from behind, mainly from Largo. And also keep in mind, Max, if he finishes in P3, he will no longer be our de facto championship leader, but he will be our actual championship leader.
Yes, he will, by a singular point over Gabor Shontos. So yes, he will be our new championship leader. And as well, Danis Langrock has actually held up Francesco Largo. Largo will get DRS down the next straight, but he won't really gain too much onto Alexander Dimas in front, and he's just hemorrhaging time all the way throughout that final sector. And that has put Largo straight on the back foot, and now potentially under pressure from Daniel Koya behind. And this is exactly what Alexander Dimas wants. He wants his championship rival to be in a spot above her and lose a few places to everybody behind him. This top 6 is the train. That could be the train leading onto that final lap, because Giovanni Kennis is just a little bit too far back at the moment. He's 4.5 seconds away from Stephen Faso. And Francesco Largo now needs to push on back into that DRS range. If he's not able to find it on this lap, you definitely would think Daniel Koya could pounce.
Yes, indeed he will, and it looks like Beisner, with stopping that lap later, will be ahead of Langrock, at least for just a little bit. Kokeni has burned through most of his softs already, and he's not managed to overtake any of the drivers further up ahead, so I wonder how he is going to continue with that strategy. But I think he figured out that stopping now meant that he could not go the distance on the mediums and would have to try something different. Although I believe he could have gone to the hards, because he started on medium. Yeah, he started on mediums, so I'm not entirely sure why he just didn't go for the hards and just try to stay in there, but I guess he knew that he had to do something different, otherwise he would be stuck in P14 as he is now. So later we will hopefully see more about that. We are still at the front of the grid, where we have a DRS train of 6 drivers fighting for that race win here tonight. That's Abe Gobadi currently leading ahead of Tomasetto Alaya. Dimas in 3rd place ahead of Francesco Largo. And then it's Daniel Kara and Stephen Vasso in 6th, who all still have a chance at that race win here tonight. Behind them, almost 5 seconds, is Giovanni Canis leading that 2nd train. And it looks like they won't be in contention for this one.
No, it doesn't seem so. They're not even finding any time onto that train in front. So at the moment, it's just going to be these top 6 squabbling away as we've got about 9.5 laps to go in this Spanish Grand Prix. And for Francesco Largo, he was able to find his way back into the DRS range of Alexander Dimas. And he could now see himself move a little bit further up when it comes to those final few laps. Of course, these drivers have been managing their tyres, they're managing their engines, their battery, everything they can to at least give them a fighting chance onto those final few laps. But for Abe Gabadi at the moment here, Miff, he is really the man on form as it currently stands, because if he wins this one, he wins 2 of the last 3, and he finished 6th last time out in Austria, so on some very good point scoring form as it currently stands. And of course, at the start of the season here, Miff, Gabadi was qualifying on the back row of the grid 3 times in a row, so yeah, he really has had an upshot in performance, and for the Ferrari at the moment, he could be staring at his 2nd win, and he could become the 1st repeat winner since Gabor Jontos. There's plenty of drivers who could become the 1st repeat winner, or could Alexander Dimas potentially pick up his 1st win of the season?
Yeah, and that for the championship leader, and it shows that consistency is key here in these upper tiers. Even if you don't get a race win, if you're consistent enough, you find yourself on the top of the standings. Vasso, we saw just have a huge moment coming out of turn 3, but at least managed to keep that car on track and within half a second of car just ahead. Gobadi's done so nicely, still has a 6-10 gap over on Alliant. The gaps at the top seem to be at least staying around the 6, 7, 8, 10 mark, so not really where any of the drivers is going to try to make a move. But then again, we are on lap 25, say that lap 26 of 33, so in a couple of laps time we will see the driver start to make some moves. We already see Alaya pull out on the start finish straight to just cool down those tires and the car a little bit, so he will be in prime position and prime temperature to go for the moves later on in the race, because as we said, you want to be ahead at turn 1 of lap 33 of 33. And that is when you're going to win the race. Are you going to get an overtake done later on in the lap? Most likely not. So you need to get it done in turn 1, and that means being super close in turn 14, getting into the final lap, and getting that DRS for the final run down the main straight.
Yeah, that could be some very crucial moments indeed about staying within those DRS ranges. And even if you do squabble behind to try and make your way up through the field, keeping within those DRS moments are ever so crucial. As for Alexander Dimas, he's 7 attempts shy. Largo a further 8 attempts back from him. They're not really making too many inroads at the moment, but it could just still be in that management phase. Because when we cross the line now, there'll be a total of 6 laps remaining in this Spanish Grand Prix, and we still have the 6 battling it out for the lead, who have actually extended their gap over the field behind by half a second, as Igor Pazeshki picks up our first free second time penalty of the evening, as he is down in 13th place in the standings. He's currently 11th, and he's passed 3 races. He's not scored a point, as Pazeshki, so a real torrid time of things at the moment for the Haas driver. But for Ave Gabadi out in front, he's maintaining that gap extremely well at the moment. And he's still about half a tenth clear of Tomasetto Alaya. But still plenty of laps to go. Anything can happen. You never know. We could see Largo and Dimas potentially come to blows.
Yes, indeed, and I think I've just cracked the code as to what has happened with Tomas Kokeni's strategy. Remember, he disconnected earlier on, the AI took over, and I think that also meant that the strategy was changed to an AI strategy, and that is why he went to the softs and is now out on the hards, because realistically, I can't find another explanation why you would go from mediums to softs, then to hards in the final, let's say, 10 laps of the race. So I think that is what happened. He finds himself in P17. He's closing in onto Wojtek Steg at least, but I think aside from that, he's not going to gain any places. And from our pole sitter, that's a very sad way to end the race here tonight after he was doing oh so well. In the meantime, we see Tomasetto Alaya get a little bit closer to the back of the Ferrari of Avko Body. He's already trying to test the waters a little bit for when he really needs to make the moves count. We're now on lap 28 of 33. It's just 5 laps left to go, and then it is really going to kick off. So expect the drivers to start to play a little bit of mind games now before they're really going to show their true colors and go for some moves. We have 6 drivers in it to win it, but who comes out on top?
That is the big old question. Who does come out on top in this one? Who will be victorious? Of course, we have met plenty of drivers looking for their second win in this train. The likes of Gabadi, of course, as well. We have Tomasetto Alaya looking to pick up his second race victory of the season. I think that actually is it so far, with Wojtek Steg being down in 16th place. He's not really turned this form into some good succession like we saw from Gabadi, and he's down in 16th place at the moment. And that is probably where he is going to stay. If not, drop down to 17th behind Tomasz Kokeni when all things are said and done. But for Alexander Dimas, Francesco Largo, Koya and Vasso, they're looking for their first race victories of the season. They're looking to at least try and make their way on to the podium, especially for Dimas, who's extending his championship lead over Francesco Largo. But Gabadi and Alaya will bring them down. And speaking of Wojtek Steg, he unfortunately retires from the race. So I think when we come out, as it currently stands, when we come out of this evening, Gabadi will be, if my maths is correct, 8 points behind. No, he will be about 12 points behind, and then Tomasetto Alaya will be gaining 2 points, so he will be a total of 6 points behind. So it is super close throughout this field, and Alaya could actually potentially jump up into that second place in the standings as well.
Yeah, well, still second in the standings, of course, will be Gabor Santos if it stays as it is. But, of course, as we mentioned, he's been promoted to F2. A lot of drivers were very surprised to see him in F3 at the start of the season. As we now see Alaya getting very close to the back of that Ferrari. He's starting to open up the attacks and already showing Gabadi that this race is far from over. In the meantime, Francesco Largo is dropping down a second behind all the other drivers as we see that Red Bull AI pull over to the inside just before turn 4. But Largo, I think he stopped just a little bit too early, because I already saw 2 laps ago that he was starting to lose a little bit of performance. And it looks like the performance that he is losing is just enough for the drivers up ahead to get away a little bit and to make sure that we go down from a 6-way fight for a race win to a 3-horse battle between Dimas, Alaya and Gobadi, with Dimas also getting within 3/10 now of Tomasetto Alaya. So for the next round trip of the start-finish straight, I want to go on board with our Mercedes driver and potential championship leader after this race to see if he is going to go for any moves at the end of lap 31 or he's going to sit tight and wait another lap.
Let's just wait and see what happens. Is Alaya going to go for a move potentially on Gobadi? That is the big one as well. You can see Gobadi weaving down that main straight, trying to break the toe, the slipstream, to stop Alaya from seeing his way through. He's getting closer and closer. He looks to the inside line. Gobadi defends, and Alaya not able to make his way through just yet. But he's certainly knocking at the door. He's threatening for a move as we've got 3 laps to go in this Grand Prix. And it is going to be oh so close. We did say Largo, when he first came into the pit lane, he's going to be struggling near the end. So he would fall down the order, and that is exactly what's happening at the moment. As Alexander Dimas is really close to the back of Tomasetto Alaya as we now head through this middle sector. The Mercedes man is really glued to the back of the Aston Martin. Are we going to see a move up into turn 10, or will he just still play this waiting game for now? The dirty air through turn 9 for Dimas will be quite substantial as you try to tip your car through. He has to lift a little bit more than usual, but he still is able to keep within 3/10 of the car in front. Will Alaya go for it down the main straight, or will it be Dimas to go for it once again? Because when we cross the line, we'll have 2 racing laps remaining.
Yeah, so the real overtaking moves will have to start now, at least for Dimas. He needs to take 1 in order to get the 2nd in the final lap. So let's see if he can do so. We start now in lap 32. Alaya is way too far back from Gobadi. He knows he can't get the overtake done, but he's positioning himself for a last lap overtake, and it looks like Dimas is indeed not able to get past. Lago has managed to catch up just a little bit. Kaira and Vaso are not too far behind from him, but they'll have to make a move stick. We already saw that Dimas was very fast through turn 4, so let's see if he can get that done again and go for a move down into turn 5. That might be his only move if he still wants to get a race win, but he's too far behind to really go for a move there. Gets very close in the braking zone to that Aston Martin, but will be too far away to make any move stick. So it will be down the start-finish straight. Get close enough to Tomasetto Alaya. Force a double overtake if you want to go for a race win here at all. But looks like the top 3 definitely will be fighting that out in the final lap. Gobadi still leads ahead of Alaya, but Alaya now within 4/10 of that Ferrari man. He wants to make that move in a final lap, and he wants to be that first, well, realistically 2nd, but all the drivers still in there. First repeat winner. Made a little bit of a mistake in turn 13. The gap is now 6/10. He will have to make it work now. We see Gobadi weaving on the start-finish straight. He's gaining. He's gaining a lot. He's gaining heaps, but can he go for a move down the inside? He looks for it, but can't do it just yet, so has to back away. There will only be 1 more move, and that's their 2nd DRS home, but it almost looks like Max that Gobadi's already done it.
Yes, Gobadi might have just played his cards right. He might have just used his battery effectively enough, and that little wobble from Tomasetto Alaya through the final corner has potentially just cost him any chance of taking this race victory. But still, there are a few more opportunities left to go here in Barcelona, but he's lost a little bit of time out of turn 5. Dimas won't be fighting too aggressively either, I don't think. I think he's going to be happy just coming across the line for his 3rd podium of the season. But for Gobadi, he's got this one last opportunity to defend from. Alaya will be using everything, will be braking as late as he can, trying to scare Gobadi offline, but no, won't be there. And this man has had a real upshot in performance coming out of Monaco. It was a horror start to the season, but at this midpoint stage, he has really turned a new leaf. He started off with a clean slate with this race victory. Whatever happened at the start of the season, do not remember it, because Gobadi is here, and he's here to fight. He takes his 2nd win of the season. He wins the Spanish Grand Prix, and Gobadi is looking to come for that championship lead of Alexander Dimas as he did an absolute masterclass of a race there. He got the lead from Kokeni and has never looked back since. What a drive that was from Gobadi. It was Tomasetto Alaya who ended up in 2nd, and Dimas will take the championship lead away from Gabor Jontos. But with that, another podium to add to his tally But Myth, Avga Baddy, you think he's a different driver from the start of the season. You think it's not the same man from the start of the season. It's been a real upshot in performance over the past couple of rounds.
Yeah, and that upshot is definitely what he needed. He is our repeat winner now in this season. After 6 races, he's won 2, and I believe this is even his 3rd podium of the standings. After a horrid start, he's back up there in the championship fight. Finishes ahead of Tomasetto Alaya, who's going to move up a little bit in the standings as well. Dimas, now our new championship leader. He is ahead of Francesco Lago in 4th. Then it's Kair, followed by Vaso. Giovanni Ken is our stand-in for tonight in P7 after a great qualifying. Unfortunately, not the result that he wanted after a terrible start to the race, dropping from 8th to 10th at the end of lap 2. Then it's Alan Beater in 8th ahead of Jensen Rausen. They had a little bit of a scrap down in the final lap, and the final point scorer will be Valentino Labella. Then outside the points, we find Carlos Galindo ahead of Casper Flack, Dennis Langrock, Lucas Weisner, Igor Brzezinski, Tomasz Kokeni, our unlucky man who started from pole, and then not classified Wojciech Steg, last week's race winner, and Boba. But man, oh man, Ave Gobadi, a great way for him to do it again. We already heard from him before, and I think he will be thrilled to be back in the interview box if he has some time for it. But great work by him all the way through, and he really mixes himself up in that championship fight despite not having the best start of the season.
I think everyone at the start of the season potentially wrote Gabadi off with how poor it was. I mean, he was last in qualifying, I think, for the first 3 rounds, or at least at the bottom of the field on the back row. And from Monaco onwards, he's just seemed to be a completely revitalised driver. And it's so good to see drivers that have these difficult periods at the start of a season just see themselves then bounce back with a race victory, even a podium, and then they use that to just snowball their way into even more great results. That's the big thing as well in racing, it's a mentality snowball as well. You get a good result, your mentality rises, and then if you keep doing that, it snowballs higher and higher and higher, and then you're constantly on a good stage. But then, of course, what Gabadi needs to not do here, Myth, is that slip. If he lets that slip, it could be game over. He could be on a run that we saw at the start of the season. So he needs to keep this confidence high, needs to keep that mentality in a good place, and he needs to carry on performing like this because at the moment, he is seeming like an unstoppable force over these past 3 rounds. It's 2 race wins out of 3, and we head to Silverstone next week. Can he make it 3 out of 4?
Yeah, if we look at the results that he had so far, he started the season in Australia with a P15, then it was 14th in Belgium with 11th in the States. Then it was a race win in Monaco, 6th last week out in Austria, and now another race win that is going to put him on, let's see, with 16 points extra. There was no pole position for him, sadly, but that will be 37 points. That would be ahead of Dimas, but of course Dimas is scoring points, so Dimas will still stay ahead, as will Tomasetto Alaya and Francesco Lago. He does get past Carlos Galindo, so he will be 5th in the standings, well, 4th realistically, because we can't count Gabor Jantos anymore, but it's really added himself up in the mix. Tomasetto Alaya is going to leapfrog Francesco Lago as he scored a couple points less. Only about 1 point though, so he is the new 2nd man in the standings, but our new championship leader, Alexander Dimas, who also ended up in P3 of the race. And it looks like, Max, we have Ave Gobadi waiting for us in the waiting room, so let's go over there and let's have an interview with our race winner. So here we have him then, as we mentioned so many times, rising from the dead after quite a lackluster start of the season. A race win in Monaco really revitalized his hopes on doing anything this season. Now his 2nd race win, a repeat winner here, and also moving up to 5th in the championship standings, Ave Gobadi.
Yeah, first of all, thank you a lot. It's a pleasure being here, as always. Monaco helped a lot to, like, bring my momentum back and my motivation. And yeah, I'm really happy with the results. Quali was a bit of loosey-goosey moments with the laps, but it was enough for P3, thank God. And yeah, we managed race really well. The strategy was amazing. I want to thank my engineer Abdullah. He did really, really well. Props to him. But yeah, keeping everyone behind and managing the fuel and the tires and everything. In Spain, it's always hard because even a small curb can just change the balance of the car really quickly. So it's really hard to manage the pace and everything. And staying out one more lap, the overcut, yeah, that did the magic.
Yeah, that did the magic indeed. You stayed ahead, the drivers behind you, pretty much all on older tires, bar, of course, Alexander Dimas, who came home third. He is our championship leader, but hey, if you are only 9 points behind the championship leader, how does that feel?
Good. I mean, this is where my goal is, so I guess I should race a bit quicker to catch quicker and to hopefully lead. The most important is leading after the final race, of course, but the first 3 races didn't go as planned, but I'm glad I am catching up, and yeah, let's just see how the next races will go, because anything can happen, really.
And now, of course, that we came out here in Spain this week was also a bit of surprise. We were expecting it to be Canada. That, of course, got changed at the start of the week. How did that affect your preparation for this race?
Not much. I still practice the same. So no matter the track, I will push flat out. And obviously, yeah, I mean, there's no track that will limit my preparations. So I will full push right now. And since the championship is still very much alive, I will push even harder.
Yeah, with that championship being also alive next week, we're going to head on to Silverstone. What's your game plan there?
Win.
Oh, can't be more clear than that, can it be, Max?
No, not that. That's as clear as can be.
Any questions from your end, Max?
Yeah, a couple from me, Ave. Of course, first of all, congratulations on your second win of the season. Just, of course, we saw Kilkenny disconnect. You're able to take that race lead. Just how important for the engine temps, especially, was it to be in that clean air throughout the majority of that race to help keep Tomasetto behind?
First of all, thanks. Yeah, well, I think I was leading when he disconnected, so the plan was still the same, to keep everyone behind, manage the pace well, the tires, the strategy. And yeah, everything was going according to plan. Yeah, nothing much. The preparation was still the same. Of course, very unlucky for him. It's the worst thing is to disconnect, really, because yeah, all that preparation for nothing. But yeah, I think, and to answer your question in brief, yeah, just the same thing: push and not let anyone by.
That worked to an absolute T, of course. Coming on to that final lap, Tomasetto was about half a second behind you, heading down that main straight when he opened up the DRS. Did you think he potentially could have got you and got for the move into turn 1, or did you save your battery enough to pretty much write that off and keep the position?
Well, I saved enough and I pushed enough. It was a good sweet spot between everything, really. But yeah, nonetheless, I would still, the last laps you always want to push. So I knew they would do that because the previous laps he was trying to go for the move into turn 1, and yeah, I made sure cleanly and fair to not let him do that. So since he pushed a lot and he had one tire older than me, one lap older than me, so I wouldn't think that would play much into his favor, really. So yeah.
That certainly worked into your hands. But yeah, congratulations on your race victory. And yeah, hopefully we see you back here as a free time race winner next week.
Hopefully, yeah, it's a pleasure of mine to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us.
Cheers.
All right, and for the interviews, that is already going to be it for tonight. Sadly, Elia and Dimas are not in the waiting room, so we cannot have any interviews with them. Would have loved to have an interview with Dimas, as he is now our new championship leader. He is on 46 points, which is one ahead of Gabor Jontos, but of course he's been promoted, so he is not in the mix anymore. But we've had at least strategy-wise, perhaps not the most interesting race. I think the biggest moment out of this race was the heartbreak for Tomas Kokeni, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it really was. That was the big. I think that was a key factor in this race because you never know. Kokeni could have spoilt Gabadi's party, but yeah, we weren't able to see what would happen there. It would have been very, very interesting indeed. But yeah, so for Kokeni, I think that's the real talking point and the real big factor from this race was Kokeni's disconnect. And I feel like everybody else from that point onwards, because it's so difficult to overtake on this game, especially at Spain, it was just potentially just make sure they brought it home and damage control, really.
And I think another thing that we can see here throughout the season, I'm just looking at the standings a little bit more. It looks like there's a little bit of a curse on starting the race in pole position. The only driver that has managed to convert a pole into a race win was Tomasetto Alaya back in round 3. All the other drivers were not able to convert that pole. Francesco Lago had pole in Australia, finished 2nd. Dimas had pole in Belgium, finished in 10th place. And of course, in round 3, Tomasetto Alaya was able to do so. Vaso then got pole in Monaco, finished 7th. Last week out, Dimas had pole, he finished 2nd. And this time it was Tomas Kokeni getting that pole position, but finishing outside of the points. So this shows that even though you're quickest in qualifying session, that doesn't mean all too much. It happens in the race, and with it being so close between 5, 6, 7 drivers, they can all win that race. And just the slightest of mistakes or mishaps can end a race win for you.
It certainly can. Anything can happen, and of course, the points aren't won in the well, 1 point is running the qualifying, but the main points are not won in the qualifying session. It's all about race pace. So you need a good mix of both. And if you just can't be clinical enough to unfortunately see it through, you'll lose out on some valuable points. So it shows that, if anything here, if pole position might be a curse and you want to start 2nd or 3rd on the grid and maybe make your way forwards.
Well, on the other hand, that extra point does help you a little bit because Dimas got 2 pole positions and he now has the championship lead by 1 point over the promoted man. So without those 2 extra points, he still wouldn't be in the championship lead. So it still matters a little bit, especially down the line, but you will have to convert it. And for Dimas, 3rd podium of the season is very good out of 6, but he's still waiting to get his first race win out of the season. Same thing can be said about Francesco Lago. Of course, for Alaya, he's got 1. And Abe Gobadi, the man we just heard, already has 2. But I think it's only more than fair now that we're going to start preparing for the race next week out, because next week, at the same time, we will be racing in Silverstone. Of course, there's a season finale in the real world F1 out there that I think everyone will be watching at the edge of their seats this weekend in Abu Dhabi. But we are preparing for our mid-season race, round 7 in Silverstone. And Max, it's in pretty much every calendar, but it would be almost a crime to leave it out of one, wouldn't it be?
It would be. It's just such a good circuit. Even on this game where it's so difficult to overtake, you can do so many variations on the strategy, and also just there's so many opportunities to go for a move that you can be really opportunistic, especially on that final lap. So it's going to be an exciting one. I'm expecting some really good racing. A bit like what we saw today, where it's DRS trains for majority, and then it will get exciting near the end. But I think everyone's accustomed to that because, of course, you have to manage so much on this game. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting one, and of course, it really does kickstart the second half of the season, and we'll be in for a very, very intense race. And I think it's a circuit as well, Myth, that a majority of drivers are good at Silverstone. There's not really many that are too weak around there. So I'm expecting as well an insanely close qualifying.
Yeah, I think it will be a lot closer. Of course, weather is also going to be another factor in the race, which could spice things up further. And then before we have our Christmas break, we have another race in Mexico in 2 weeks' time before we have a couple weeks off. And then we, of course, have our final couple of races around 9, 10, and 11 at the end of January for our season finale. So there's still a lot to look out for here in F3. At the moment, the race in F2 and F4 has just started, so if you want to tune into those, make sure to watch them. We will be back next week at our same time, so it's 7 p.m. British Standard Time for all of you out there, 8 p.m. for the rest of us Europeans. For next week, we go to Silverstone and we will see the Grand Prix of Great Britain be the turns of round 7, and it will be the question, can we get another repeat winner, or will Ave Gobadi be the first to take 3? We'll find out next week.